Welcome to the No Drug Show. Our guest this evening is Dave Figueroa. Dave is the president of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights in Florida and the host and producer of his own show called Freedom Magazine. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Larry.
Now, you've been working on basically investigating what's behind these kinds of terrorist acts for a number of years. You've had a lot of guests on your show, and you've been pretty active in this area. So can you enlighten us? What is actually going on here? I mean, is it just one person acting alone, or how does this work?
No, it's never one person acting alone. I mean, terrorism by definition employs violence, suicide. It employs inhuman acts of pain and torture against not just the general public like in 9/11, but against individuals when they're captured and things like that. And just recently the role of psychiatry, the role of psychology, their conditioning techniques, the drugs that psychiatrists use. I mean, those types of techniques are just now recently coming to light. I mean, to take a person who's very religious, it doesn't really matter what the religion is, but to take a person who believes in whatever their creed is, and to take that person and turn them into a killing machine, against their will, or having them do things that are against their nature. You need something behind that. You need something fairly powerful. Mm-hmm. And psychiatrists employ drugs and conditioning techniques in order to change people from what they normally would be into killing machines. And the terrorist factions that we hear about on TV, behind those individual acts of mayhem, you find psychiatrists, psychologists, and their drugs.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was, basically the rhetorical question that I asked at the outset was, is Osama bin Laden the only nutcase behind these acts, or are there others? And there's a guy by the name of, I may have the pronunciation of his name incorrect, but Ayman al-Zawahiri pops up as his quote-unquote handler or number two man or the brain behind bin Laden. What do you know about him?
Ayman al-Zawahiri was trained in Cairo, and he's a psychiatrist. He is bin Laden's personal doctor. He's a surgeon, and he is his number one man. Mm-hmm. And in 1988, Zawahiri was the person that convinced bin Laden to form Al-Qaeda. Mm-hmm. Before that, bin Laden and bin Laden right now, he's the poster child for terrorism at this point, in this country anyway. Mm-hmm. Before he became that poster child, he was a member of the jihad. He was against the Soviet Union's influence in Afghanistan. But he was transformed from just someone who was a supporter to someone who actually exported that ideology. I mean, his whole thought patterns and his entire viewpoint was changed by Zawahiri. And whatever types of drugs that Zawahiri used to make that change in bin Laden, we don't know. But we know that there was a real change in this guy's attitude and his willingness to wreak havoc. And as far as whether he is 100% the person behind 9/11 or not, I don't know if we're ever going to know. But the point was, he was involved, and that ideology of terror was coming from bin Laden, who was influenced by a psychiatrist. And that really is the bottom line. And that's what people have to realize, that when you see terrorist activities, whether it's on the nightly news, whether you read about it on the internet, when you see these terrorist activities, there's something behind that. And there usually always is someone behind whoever the point man is in all these assassinations and the terrorist activities that we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that is a very good point, because, you take a look at these guys and you say, now, who in their right mind would get behind the controls of a plane and fly into a town, knowing they were going to die? And how does that get brought about? I mean, somebody walking along the street, and you're having a rational conversation with them, you wouldn't expect that kind of behavior. So in order to modify that behavior, you have to use some sort of technology. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to jump in a plane and fly into a World Trade Center. I mean, every individual has a basic urge towards survival, sort of like a natural law.
Right.
And in order to alter that natural instinct towards survival, you have to have some pretty powerful technology, and this is what you're referring to.
Exactly. You have to take a look at what psychiatric drugs do. I mean, first of all, it's documented that years ago, even the kamikaze pilots back in the Second World War were on amphetamines. which are psychiatric drugs. It's documented that a lot of these suicide bombers, before they go out, they're given psychiatric drugs. Whether it's a person who's going to be, carrying a bomb into a marketplace, in a crowded inner city area, or whether he's going to jump on a plane and fly into the World Trade Center. It's documented that these guys are on some form of psychiatric drug and or have psychiatric influence in their background.
Welcome back to the Problems and Solutions Show. Our guest is Dennis Clarke, past president of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International. We're talking about terrorism, terrorist acts, what's behind these terrorist acts, and surprisingly enough, the real terrorism and the very real threat that's going on, that could be going on right in your neighborhood. Dennis, getting paid money for this?
Good question. Just as Osama bin Laden has his right-hand man, Ayman al-Zawahiri, a psychiatrist, he's a psychiatrist. That's his doctor. That's his therapist. That's the guy who runs him.
He's supposedly the number 2 man, according to the CIA, but
it's the guy who runs it.
He runs them, yeah.
He runs them. We got a mental patient here in this fellow Osama bin Laden. Does anybody doubt that?
Right.
Do we doubt this? That's his psychiatrist right there. See? That's the guy giving the orders. That's the guy who's running him.
This booklet, you can call the number on your screen, and this booklet is called Chaos and Terror, manufactured by psychiatry. It's put out by the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. We'll be happy to send you a copy free of charge. Call the number on your screen to get this booklet, Chaos and Terror, manufactured by psychiatry, which will give you the data and the facts behind the notorious terrorist acts like 9/11 that were basically created by psychiatrists operating behind the scenes.